guys. I hope you all are doing well today. Hopefully, you're not in the rain. Today, I want us to, this video shouldn't be too long, but I want us to take a look at the next section in your book. So if you have the student book, let's take a look at page 74. Page 74. So this unit, we have been talking about time. We've been talking about how you schedule your time. And last week we talked about when phrases, which tell us when something happens. So this is another way to talk about time. And we're going to be using before and after to talk about the order of events. So we're going to be looking at some schedules today and using before and after to describe the order of events. So let's take a look at some of the example sentences. So the first one is using the word before. So repeat after me. Before. Before. Good. So before means something happens earlier in time. Means it happens earlier in time. So let's read this first sentence together. Before she eats breakfast, she reads the newspaper. So we have two events. We have eats breakfast, she eats breakfast, and we have she reads the newspaper. So let's read this sentence again. Before she eats breakfast, she reads the newspaper. Which of these events happened first? Eat breakfast or read the newspaper? So, reading the newspaper happened first. So, before she eats breakfast, so it's telling us before she eats breakfast, she reads the newspaper. So if we are looking at this on a timeline, so just like when we did some history, if we use a timeline, we talk about this is later and this is earlier, or this is earlier, this is later. Before she eats breakfast, so she eats breakfast. So we're talking about eating breakfast. That's the first sentence. And it says before she eats breakfast. So ahead of that, she reads the newspaper. So before she eats breakfast, so earlier than eating breakfast, she reads the newspaper. So reading the newspaper happened first. Eating breakfast happened second. One more time, let's read that together. Before she eats breakfast, she reads the newspaper. Now, if you notice in this sentence, before and eats are both in red, and then reads is in green. So, these are two separate smaller sentences that we are using before to combine into one longer sentence. So, before she eats breakfast is one part of the sentence, and she reads the newspaper is the second part of that sentence. Now, if you look down in this second little section, the first sentence here says, can you see it? She reads the newspaper before she eats breakfast. So this before she eats breakfast can move to the end of the sentence also. So these two little sentences can come in either order. So before she eats breakfast can also move to the end of that sentence, and it will say she reads the newspaper before she eats breakfast. Now, both of these mean the exact same thing. There is in the meaning. The timeline looks exactly the same because before is still connected to eats. It's still connected to she eats breakfast. So before is still connected to she eats breakfast. So we know that we are comparing it. We know that this event is happening earlier. Oh, you can't see that. This event is happening earlier than eating breakfast. So all of this time is before she eats breakfast. She reads the newspaper. Okay? We're going to look at some other examples later on. So let's take a look at after. So if you look at the next sentence, it says, after I watch the news, I eat dinner. So after is the opposite of before. So repeat after me. After. After. Good. After means it happens later. Means it happens later. So this one says, after I watch the news, I eat dinner. So we have I watch the news and I eat dinner. So after means later. After I watch the news, I eat dinner. So which of these happens first? Watching the news or eating dinner? Watching the news happens first. So if we look back on a timeline, we're going to make another timeline to talk about this one. The first thing we have, the first event in our sentence says, I watch the news. Watch the news. So watching the television where it tells you what happened that day. Watch the news. And it says, after I watch the news. So after means later. So all of this over here, all of that is later. After I watch the news, I eat dinner. So watching the news is connected to after. So it means it's later than watching the news. After I watch the news, I eat dinner. Now, just like with before, that section can move to the end of the sentence. So, where it says, after I watch the news, I eat dinner. All of this, all of the after I watch the news, can move to the end. And it would say, I eat dinner after I watch the news. So all of that has to move together though, because it means something very different if you say, after I eat dinner, I watch the news. That means it's switched. So all of the red, after I watch the news, all of that has to move to the end of the sentence together. Again, they mean the exact same thing. If the after or before section comes at the beginning of the sentence or the end of the sentence, it means the same thing. It just has to be connected to the right event. So, choose whichever one is easiest for you, whichever one makes the most sense to you. And it does, again, the order doesn't matter. So put it at the beginning if that makes more sense to you, or put it at the end if that makes more sense to you. It's up to you. Neither of those are more common or less common. They are about the same. So just choose what you think is easiest. Now, for homework, I want you to practice this. So, you're going to be using this schedule. So you're going to be using Bonnie's morning schedule. at 6:55 in the morning. So first, she takes a shower. Second, she gets dressed. Third, she makes coffee. Fourth, she brings in the newspaper. She eats breakfast, and then she leaves for work. So the order goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you are going to be using these two events that they give you, and you'll be making a sentence using after and a sentence using before. So if we look at this on a timeline, I learned using timelines. It makes it easier for me to see something than just read the words. So if that helps you, you can do that too. So for number one in the example, the two events that they gave us were take a shower and get dressed. So if we look at this example, take a shower happens first and get dressed happens second. So on a timeline, it's going to have, ooh, so bright. It's going to say, whatever, take a shower and then get dressed. So, take a shower happens first, get dressed happens second. Now, in this, you are using before and after. So the first one says, after Bonnie takes a shower, she gets dressed. So remember, after means it happens later. So after is going to get attached to the first thing. So take a shower happens first, get dressed happens second. So after means the event is going to happen later. So after is going to get attached to the first item, the first event. After she takes a shower, because it happens first, so then we're looking at after she takes a shower is all of this. After she takes a shower, she gets dressed. So after event 1, event 2. Then if we look at the next section, so the next section is using before. So just like with after, before means it happens earlier. So because it happens earlier, it's going to get attached to the second event. So before she gets dressed, she takes a shower. Before Bonnie gets dressed, she takes a shower. So before is talking about earlier. So it gets attached to number 2. Before event 2, event 1. Now, something else that your book does that is helpful. Your book changes when before and after get placed in the sentence. So in the first example, after comes at the beginning and before comes at the end. That before clause comes at the end and the after section comes at the beginning. But they're going to change it each time. So this next time, before comes at the beginning and after comes at the end. Before, after, and then they both come at the beginning in the last one. So it's going to change where it is in the sentence, but all you have to do for this section is remember that after gets attached to the first event. So whatever event happens first is going to be attached to after, and whatever event happens second is going to get attached to before. So before gets attached to the second event, after gets attached to the first event. So I want you to practice this. This is something that gets easier the more you practice it. And sometimes the explanation is more confusing than just talking about it and just doing it. So for homework, I want you to do this section. It does not have to be perfect. After you do it, just take a picture, send it to me, and I will look at it and see how we're doing. And if we need to go over it again, we will. But I want you to practice. So go over the bottom of page 74. You are going to fill in those sentences with the events based on this schedule. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all next week. Have a great weekend. Bye, guys.